I would not be able to be a professional artist I haven't worked a day job in 15 years.
Hmm.
Not at all. I haven't been part-time with this. I have been 100% full-time with my business since I started in 2008.
Wow, that's
Wasn't
awesome.
always easy. Um, there was a lot of ramen in the beginning.
Keep it nerdy. Keep it nerdy. Keep it real nerdy. Nerdpreneur, you know I love my work. Life's a game, so I'ma take my turn. Nerds deserve to put their passion first. Let them rap a verse so they can all be heard.
Yeah, my nerdy passion basically is drawing.
Correct. I'm a breeder of tarantulas, importing tarantulas and some other critters.
I am a harpist. I do mainly Celtic harp, video game songs, songs from nerdy TV shows.
Obviously, I'm big on Star Trek.
It is creature design, fantastical biological creations out of watercolor.
We are dice retailers.
Nerdpreneur, you know I love my work. Life's a game, so I'ma take my turn. Nerds deserve to put their passion first, so let them rap a verse so they can all be heard.
Welcome to Nerdpreneur, where we have fun conversations with people making money with their nerdy passion. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Frank.
Hello.
And today we have a very special guest. She's an incredible artist who leads a small team in her studio in Portland, Sienna of Sienna Art Studios. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So excited to have you on. So, Sienna, what is your nerdy passion?
I am a biology undergrad and scientific artist.
Interesting. Scientific artist.
Yeah.
What is a scientific artist?
I mean, a scientific artist can be many things. There's lots of scientific artists that I follow that like illustrate anatomy or draw birds. I follow a lot of people who draw birds. What I do, I have a technique of art I call numberism, which is like pointillism, where people draw entirely with dots. But instead of drawing with dots, I draw with data. So I'm drawing intricate pieces entirely with thousands of numbers and equations pulled from research, my own research, that explains how the subject that I'm drawing functions.
Can you give an example? Like, I saw one piece on your social media it's a whale. And
Oh yeah,
yeah, what numbers and data are you using in that example?
that one's really cool. That one's a little bit hard to explain, but this whale
Maybe there's
is
an
no,
easier
no, no. I'll
example that you
explain it
prefer? Oh,
because
okay.
this whale. Okay, so a really great introduction to my work is the heart. So I have a human heart that's drawn with cardiac equations. So it's drawn with equations for stroke volume, ejection fraction, cardiac output, and all of those equations are placed in the piece where it makes sense. Like cardiac output is in the aorta. I have a cello where the strings are drawn with the hertz frequencies of all the notes that you can play lined up to finger placement. For that, I graphed it out. And probably I think my best work is it's a really complicated piece, so I'm only going to explain a couple pieces of data that I drew it with because the full description is a whole page. But it's drawn with mechanical properties for tendon, muscle, and bone under ideal conditions. So it has like the tensile strength of the tendons, active range of motion for all of the joints, including the carpal bones, because I'm a crazy person, and chemistry for muscle contraction. So I have like ATP and acetylcholine. So every piece I draw is drawn with numbers and equations that tell its specific story.
That's so cool.
Wow.
So now I got to know, what is the whale?
Okay, so the whale is something I've wanted to draw for years. It's based off of the lonely whale, which you guys may have heard of. It is a whale that the Navy has been tracking since the early 90s. It's an unknown species of baleen whale that sings higher than any other baleen whale. Its fundamental frequency is 52 hertz, which is higher than any other baleen whale. But because it's different, we've been able to track this one individual for several decades. And normally for a whale, for one individual in the vastness of the ocean and with all of the noise that's going on in there, you can track an individual for about 30 minutes. Um, People call him lonely because singing for whales, as in birds, is it's used for sexual selection. And so if you're singing differently, you're probably not pairing up and reproducing. And they also don't tend to record this whale swimming with other whales. And so they call him the lonely whale. When I first found this story, it really resonated with me. I'm a neurodivergent individual, and I have a long history of struggling with things like loneliness, especially I think all of us had that during the pandemic. And I wanted to capture that feeling we all, I think, had. But over time, I started thinking, how do we know this whale is lonely? That's our projection. We're assuming he's lonely because he's different and we haven't tracked him with other individuals. I don't know that he's lonely. I don't know what his inner world is. You can't really know that with most non-human animals. You certainly can't know that with a whale you've never seen and you don't even know what species it is. um, what I know is this whale is different. And because this whale is different, we get to track him. Like we wouldn't have even known he was there if he sounded like all the other whales. And so for me, the piece is a celebration of him and his weirdness. So I don't know. So there's theories as to maybe he's a hybrid, maybe he has a physiological deformity, and I want to propose that maybe he likes singing like that. Maybe he is capable of singing in different ranges, but he just likes how it feels or how it sounds. But
Yeah,
yeah, we
I
don't know.
totally get that. There's, I mean, the falsetto range, Michael Jackson, Justin Timberlake, like when you get good enough at it, it sounds good. But if you're not a great falsetto singer, it doesn't sound great. So I
Or you
could
take
see
a
that.
Tom Waits is an amazing singer in his own right, but not at all someone you would say had a range of voice that was
Yeah,
typical, right? So yeah, it's the Tom Waits of Wales, if you will, maybe.
I love that celebration of the difference here, and
Mhm.
finding that personal story is beautiful, and that connection to it. And I think we all, yeah, like you said, we all can relate to that loneliness factor that we felt. So, am I to understand that the numberism that you're using here is it more hertz kind of stuff? Is it GPS coordinates of where we've seen them? What is it?
So the numbers I'm using to draw this whale with, it's the main frequency, so 52 hertz. Specifically because he has a range, it's 51.75 hertz, which I like because it's more pleasant to draw that number. And then I read a bunch of research papers about this whale, tracking him, and I took the recordings of his songs and I turned that into numbers. So I quantified it,
Mm,
and so I'm drawing him with his song.
interesting.
Whoa. Have you ever done like I mean, I feel like this might fall out of numberism per se, if
Mhm.
I understand it at all close, but it's like the notes that they sing in. Is that, do you do that sometimes?
That's actually a plan for a future piece on birds.
Ooh.
But I will put out there, I collaborate with scientists quite a lot for my pieces, and I'm looking for someone to collaborate with on these pieces that have more of a background in physics and how would you say, like audio analysis?
Mhm.
Like
Mm.
there are some recordings I have that I don't know how to quantify to the finest detail that I need to draw them, and I need someone who can take my recordings and transfer them into a sequence of numbers.
So any physicists and audio experts that are listening,
Audio
reach out.
engineers. I'm
Audio
looking for a good
engineers, reach
audio
out.
engineer.
There we go.
Yes.
So,
Awesome.
so
Well,
I'm
that
curious.
helps give a pretty good idea of what it is that you do. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now that begs the question to me of like, what came first for you? Was it the science or the art? And how did that come to be a discovery you should meld the two?
So I've been an artist since I was a little one. And I didn't have a background in math or science, but I was really interested in it. I've always been a big nerd. I've always loved school. You couldn't get me to stop reading and learning. but I felt a barrier between me and science, mostly because I had a really bad history with math and I didn't do well in it. It really stressed me out. And so that was just a wall I was hitting. So I started doing drawings drawn in with numbers and equations. Originally, I was drawing with the numbers of the clock 1 through 12, and this was my way of capturing a moment in time passing. This was a meditative process I was using to just try to keep myself in the present, which was lovely. When I started drawing numbers and pieces that were coming from an honest place, that was the first time that I started reliably selling my work and people were drawn to it. And I think that the audience can always tell when you're being genuine, when it's coming from a real place. But I drew with the numbers of the clock 1 through 12 for 2 years, and then I started drawing with scientific concepts. And so the first piece was Schrodinger's cat and Fibonacci's snail. I did these for fun, and then realized after the fact that illustrating a scientific concept in numbers in this way helped me form a stronger relationship with a concept. So when I was done with illustrating Schrodinger's cat, I had a better understanding of the theory, I had a better understanding of the math, and I had better recollection of it. And so I sort of found out on accident that this was a really good learning device for me. It was also really helping me decrease my anxiety about math. And so I think simply drawing these mathematical equations in a pretty context helped me approach it. And so that sort of shattered my barrier and helped me reapproach science.
So you used creativity and art to break through your barriers that surrounded your academics.
Yes, I found a place for myself with math and science that felt right for me.
That's so cool. I have a close childhood friend who was struggling with math. I mean, he had all kinds of just not great teachers and whatever it was, but this is so awesome. I wonder how many other people deal with that.
With anxiety with math?
Yeah.
Some
like
people
most of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I personally
don't even want to calculate the tips sometimes, it's
I personally loved math. I don't know.
I was a theater kid, so I get that. I wasn't super into math on my side. But so
I love math now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right? Especially the concepts are so cool, right?
I think that most of us would love math and science if it was presented in a way that's more relatable and human. Like we tend to present math just sort of in this, the idea is that like math lives and dies on the page. It's just rote, and there's nothing living and human about it. But the fact is, most math we have came originally from observations of the natural world. And so if we were instead learning math from a perspective of engaging with the world, it would mean something to us. It'd be much more relatable. It'd be much easier to learn and remember, and people would care about it and maybe have fun with it.
I immediately think of Newton and the apple. That's observing the natural world to help create that principle. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Well, I mean, that story is not real, but
the nerd's coming out. The nerd's coming out. Actually, yes. All right.
I loved what you said around. Well, you mentioned you started selling your art when you started doing this thing that really felt authentic to you. I think is like genuine. Is there do you think as an artist, was it something that you felt when you were doing it? Like, oh, this is really what I'm supposed to be doing as an artist, or this is what feels authentic, and that's why you did it? Or was there something else there? Was it just a feeling that you had that you kind of trusted to go with? And is that no a barometer for you? Because I find that's the way art kind of works, at least for some people. Or was there more intention behind it than that? Was there science behind it?
So I started drawing with numbers and equations because I needed it. I was in a pretty bad place. I was struggling with depression and anxiety. My life had sort of hit a reset and I didn't know where I was going next. And this work helped center me. I have found that most of my most successful work is when it is completing something for me. I think I was hesitant to do that because you're like, well, this is something that I need. What about what my clients want or the public wants. But the fact is, we're all really similar. And so when I was creating artwork about my vulnerabilities, which I will tell you while creating those, it felt kind of scary, because I was being really vulnerable and soft with the world. And at the time, that was very difficult for me. And I think people, when they see work that does that, it resonates with them and it completes something that's missing for them, something that they want to communicate, something that they want to process. And with a lot of my pieces, they do actually have a lot to do with mental health, and a personal journey, which 9 times out of 10 is something people can relate with. So I will say also that with the question about when you start being successful as an artist and how that relates to creating authentic work, um, I know a lot of artists, and there's a wide range of how successful they are. And I will say, first of all, you don't need to be a great artist to be successful. You need to be persistent, and you do
To
need.
finish a project?
Well, so not just to finish a project, but to run a business. So to be a successful artist, you're running an artist business. You just need to you need to be consistent, keep making work, listen to your public, and be willing to make adjustments. But starting off with creating work that you love, that resonates with you, is where you have to start. I know some artists who show up at these events all the time, and I ask them like, "Hey, what is this piece about?" Like, "Oh, I don't know. People like, these animals."
Yeah, right. We
Right.
at Emerald City Comic Con, we definitely saw people just pandering to like, oh, these are big superheroes, big names. I just made it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they look sad.
Yeah.
So these vendors that I know who draw and paint things because they think people will want them, they look hollow and they're stressed and they're burnt out and they're not making the money that they want to make. I will say that working events like Emerald City Comic Con is hard. Running an arts business, you hit burnout. This is like I was telling my therapist the other day that working at an event, you have a 30-second soul pitch that you do with each person that walks into the booth, and you do that for 10 hours. You're out there giving yourself and your work. It's super vulnerable. So even when you're creating genuine work, it's going to be exhausting. So if you know it's going to be hard, do it in a way that's sustainable. And the only way it can be sustainable, really, is if it's something you love, that you're willing to put in that effort for, that you're willing to bleed for.
Amen.
Yeah, that's so much what Nerdpreneur is about too. It strikes at the heart of it is that, starting a business is not easy no matter what business it is. And it becomes infinitely harder if you're doing something that you hate doing or you have no interest in. And so that's that must be, events. Let's talk about those for a second because they
Sure.
are, they're hard for people just going to them and not being a vendor, even just like getting through 3 days or 4 days of an event can be a lot. When you're actually a vendor there, well, maybe give us how many events do you do in a year? And is it something you like, do you do because of the necessity of the business, or is there some things that you really look forward to it?
I do two types of events. I do art markets and I do Comic Cons. And then I also do like open studio events and gallery shows. The selling at these events is the foundation of my business. And most of my clientele actually comes from meeting them in person, as opposed to probably most people you interview. Most of their clients come from Instagram or online. But I don't generate them there. I generate them in public. Most of my followers are people who have bought something for me at an event and have spoken to me face to face at some point.
Mm-hmm. Well,
The
that's how we
number of
met you.
events,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is, right? We actually made the choice to go to our first event, and we met so many great people and nerdpreneurs, and you were one of them. But I think that it's like this untapped sort of place for nerdy entrepreneurs, actually, people doing what they love and finding a way to make it full time. That's so yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. That's how we met you. So
I will also say, and I know I get, you're going to have to keep me on focus because I have ADHD. And I will like forget where I where I am. There's a lot of artists at Comic-Con, like
Mhm.
quality, fine
So many.
artists who are using Comic-Cons as a foundation of their business, and it is working for us. And so when you go to a Comic-Con now, it's not all about merch. Like, look for the artists. There are people, like, if you're an art collector, you can find your next artist that you're just going to follow forever.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. Well, I even said
Yeah, I
that
was
to
just
Frank. It was like I was going through looking for my next artist that I want to buy because I have a blank space on my wall that I've been like wanting to potentially
he
fill with
wants to
something.
get Dune on the wall
I was looking
somewhere
for
somehow.
specifically a Dune art, and there was like no Dune art at
It was
ECC.
surprising how
but
little Dune there was. But yeah, so I actually saw your booth last year at Emerald City Comic Con, and you weren't there. I believe the person that was at the booth was saying that you were doing, like, you had school stuff going on at the time.
hmm
And so this year when I was going with Chris, I was like, Chris, Sienna Art Studio, like, I got the card last time, like that like it's like a textured, it's like a canvas kind
hmm
of. Or
Yeah.
what is it?
It's on canvas. So we print
It is
canvas
canvas. Okay.
prints, and whenever we print on canvas, there's a little strip there's no ink on, that's just white. And so instead of wasting that, we print our cards there, so it reduces waste.
Oh, that's cool.
We do a
Yeah,
lot of
and
that in our business.
I was super stoked that you were there this time, and I mean, you were very busy when we happened to swing by, but I was like, yes, she's here. Okay, all right, now we're gonna have to get her on the podcast. So I was really stoked to get to meet you in person.
Well, thank you.
That was great.
That event
Yeah.
was probably the best we've had, actually, at ECC. It was a lot.
Great.
But I was going to answer your question you asked.
Yeah.
So
Events.
we used to do a ton of events in one year, and I think we did 12 Comic Cons, and we were just doing them back to back. And so we would fly out. We've done New York City Comic Con and C2E2 and MegaCon and some in Arizona. And so we would produce everything ahead of time. So you have to completely print a whole event, and then you have to print 3 of them so that you can go to one event. So go to ECC, come back, and then next week turn around and fly out to Chicago for C2E2 and come back. You have no time in between to make our product, so you have to do it all at once. And we had a system for flying with it. And that was good financially, but it was burning us out. So it was just
like it. So
a
much
bit too much.
travel.
And I know artists one artist did 52 events last year.
Oh my gosh, that's every week. that's no breaks. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
and I just value my time a bit more, so I pull back. Now I do Emerald City Comic Con, Rose City Comic Con. I do Geek Craft Expo in Portland and in Seattle. The one in Seattle I love. Got to go to Geek Craft Expo in Seattle. It is billed as the Etsy for nerds, so it's all handmade art and all nerdy. And there's nothing else. There's no merch, there's no actors, there's no panels. It's just you want to go and get handmade nerdy art to gift people in the holidays. That is where you go. That is what you do. As I do like all my shopping there.
I'm definitely
Very
gonna
cool.
check that
Very
out.
cool.
Yeah.
So I'm curious for the ones that you do, you've narrowed it down. You're doing a bunch of them, and now you've kind of picked the ones that you want to do. What goes into you deciding to do that con versus another con, or is it just distance, or is there other stuff that goes into that?
There's so many factors. I don't know how interesting this will be. We keep spreadsheets. I do a lot
Frank's
of
already loves it.
I do a lot of spreadsheet math, and we keep a record of all of the sales we've done at any event. And I do a thing where I compare the sales. I compare the what's the word? The buy rate. I compare the buy rate for each place, and then the cost and the expense and the distance and the profit. And I create
What is
graphs.
buy rate?
So that's so you're there for a certain number of hours, and how often are you making a sale?
Gotcha. So that would just be all right. We're there for 3 days, 12 hours each day. Per hour, we're getting this many sales roughly. Is that kind of how you calculate it, I guess? I know I'm throwing math at
I
us.
did it because at Geek Craft Expo, we were making a sale every 5 minutes.
Oh, cool.
And I wanted to know, it was amazing. And I wanted to compare that to Emerald City Comic Con. And the buy rate for Emerald City Comic Con was much lower, but that's a 4-day show. So it's different. Like, it's a huge event. Emerald City Comic Con is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that tells me how efficient is the event. Um, anyway, let me see. So we track our sales. We also track our enjoyment of the event. So we've done some events that are poorly run. And if it's poorly run, if there's poor communication with the showrunners, if it's a really misorganized floor, if it's uncomfortable for us or the attendees, if it's in a location that's difficult for people to get, then it's not something we want to do because it's stressful. So we consider um, the money we're making, the amount of effort we put into getting there, and the experience we have when we're there, and the relationships we have with the show owners. That's one of the reasons we do Geekcraft Expo so much, is the people who run it are delightful and they listen to the vendors. And so if we have feedback, they will make adjustments, which I appreciate. ECC is run really well. Rose City Comic Con, I love how they're run. They're very efficient. The way that they organized Emerald City Comic Con last year was amazing. I honestly really appreciated how quickly vendors can get in. Their vendor entrance was actually a vendor entrance, as opposed to what used to be. You go, okay, here's your vendor entrance, and wait 30 minutes to get into the building. I don't know how interesting that is to you.
This is actually exactly where I think it'd be interesting for people, because one of the gateways we've heard from so many of our nerdy entrepreneurs into their passion is through the guise of events, whether that be in, say, a board game industry or like big Comic-Con type events. And so I think there is something really interesting in this for people who might be thinking about getting into a nerdy business or going to their first con.
It's definitely a leap that people need to take to really, go to that next level, because they can do only so much from their studio and from their computer.
Yeah. I can just give you advice as if you were an artist going to do a first Comic-Con.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, actually. It was like, what would you have told yourself before doing all these cons now, knowing what you know?
Okay. So you need to bring snacks.
Number one, just like D&D, you've got to bring snacks.
You won't be able to leave. You won't be able to leave your table often. Yeah.
And the food at conventions is terrible. So I'm sorry, but it is.
It's snacks for your team or for people who come to your tables?
No, just for your team.
Just
so you need
team.
snacks.
Okay.
You don't want those people hanging out too long. You want to get that buy rate up.
So there's a balance. I just want to speak to that too. So I do want to say that the buy rate's important, but one of the other things I get from events is a really wonderful personal connection with people. So there lots of people cry in my booth, actually.
Really?
The work I do, some of it connects to people in a really deep way. I have some pieces that have to do with mental health and depression. I also I get to connect with scientists, and it can get really nerdy and wonderful, and that's really fulfilling for me. So it's not just about making money. It's also about connecting with my community, connecting with my people. So I just want to say that.
Love that.
Yeah, it's important.
You have moments. I had a moment with someone last weekend at Portland Saturday Market who has epilepsy, and she is also going into neuroscience, and she was talking about how she was going into neuroscience to better understand her own brain. And I was like, hold on, I actually did a drawing for you. And I pull out this piece that I created for a collector that was inspired by their friend who suffers from epilepsy, but used it as a way to sort of, she found beauty in the experience and her own personal strength. And he wanted me to capture something that honored the experience of both struggling and sort of persevering. And I did this drawing called Storm, and I showed it to her. I'm like, you should just read it. And she read it, and it felt like I had drawn it for her. And that happens a lot, where you create a piece and you don't know who it's for, and then one day they walk into your booth and it's complete and you feel complete. And she cried and I cried and we hugged, and
wow,
you just can't get that online. I get that when I meet people at events.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, there's the personal connection. We've got snacks.
Yes, sorry.
What else have we got to do for these to be really effective?
You need floor mats to sit on, lots of them, because there's no rugs in convention halls and you're standing forever. And this is also for people attending. Walking around on those hard concrete floors is going to destroy your body.
Yeah.
It's just not sustainable to do it. So you need snacks, you need padding, you need water, you need a break. You need someone who can cover you. You need really good signage. Oh my God. I recently saw an artist. I love her work, and she sold me the piece, and there was no card, no information about her whatsoever. I'm like, how am I supposed to find you again? She's like, well, if you ask, I can hand you this brochure. And I was like, no. Every single person you engage with at these events is future client. You get to walk away with your work and a card or brochure or whatever, so they can share your work with their nerdy community. So
yeah, create that returning customer. Definitely. And also build that community. And I kind of wanted to touch on that. And this touches on the other topic of events, but how did you build your team? Like you've talked with us off mic a little bit about the people that you have on your team, but also when we saw you, you had maybe at least 3 other people in that booth with you, it seemed like, that were supporting and helping out.
Yeah.
How do you get your team? How do you collect your group?
So okay. This is a really good question. So I'm an employer, which is weird. I've been self-employed for most of my life, and being an employer seems unreal to me. The first time I had an employee, I did it completely wrong. I micromanaged her, and I wanted to make sure she did everything the way that I did it, and it just didn't work out. And I recognized that. And so the next employee that I got, I interviewed a lot of people. I had a lot of preparation. And when I found the people who had really good experience, they had experience in art markets, they were really clever, and they were easygoing, and they were good with people. I told them, like, look, I'm going to train you for the first 2 weeks. And during that time, I want you to ask me all the questions in the world. And then after that, I want you to work pretty much on your own. I want you to come to me only when you've exhausted all avenues. I want you to use your clever brain to solve the problem. And if you see that something can be done better, I want you to do it. So I want you to know I'm hiring you because I trust you to be smart enough to solve these things on your own and to improve things. And then I just trusted them. And so the people that worked with me, Brianna was one of the people you saw. She recently actually moved on to another job, but she worked with us for 7 years. We're still friends. She worked with us for 7 years off and on, and she vastly improved my business because I trusted her. And my partner, Elle, works, they create most of the product, and I trust them. And so I think that the best thing for having a team is to hire people that you can trust to do the work, and step back and let them do the work so that you can focus on, for me, the creative work and the research.
Hey, Nerdpreneurs. We're going to get back to this interview with Sienna in just a second. I just wanted to talk to you for a minute about something called our awesome Nerdpreneur board. We have a mission of elevating these nerdy entrepreneur stories and finding and discovering successful nerdy entrepreneurs. We actually want to help 1,000 people start their own nerdy business. And so we created this podcast, and we're actually looking to go a little deeper with people, which means we're building a community where you can be around other people that are also pursuing their nerdy entrepreneurial dreams. One of the ways we have been finding bigger and more successful guests like we have is that we have been going to conventions like PAX West or Emerald City Comic Con. Like, that's how we met Sienna, but we also met a number of other people. Now, of course, all of that costs money, and right now, Frank and I are investing in this business for ourselves to make these connections, to garner the great strategies that are going to work, and try to bring that to you guys for free. That's what the podcast is. We're putting out as much free stuff as we can. But if you would like to go a little deeper, or maybe you want to hear more about one of these interviews, or maybe you just want to see us go to more conventions and meet more and more successful nerdy entrepreneurs so we get better and better interviews, then you can go over to patreon.com/nerdpreneur and become a member of our awesome Nerdpreneur board. Not only will you get the full hour of PAX West interviews that we just released there, you'll also get access to full uncut episodes of all 30 plus of our previous Nerdy Entrepreneur episodes and a few other cool bonuses that Frank and I like to just throw in there every so often. So thanks a lot for listening. And if you become a board member, welcome to the board. Now let's get back to this episode. Sienna's about to share how she does her art commissions, which is actually my favorite part of this interview. I think you're really going to love it.
I did want to talk about the way I do commissions.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
So the way I do commissions is different from most artists, and I changed it again because of necessity. So I used to do commissions like everyone else does, which is a collector wants to buy your work and you're like, yes, please, thank you. I would really like to make art for money and be able to eat. I'll do whatever you want. And they get really involved in the process. You send them progress photos, they make changes. I actually invited the clients to help me like find the data and change things. And I found that to be extremely stressful because you sort of feel like someone's there to change things all the time, really slowed down the process, and occasionally ruined the art.
Right.
Ruined it, just sucked the soul out of it. And I won't say which pieces these were, but I don't make prints of them anymore because I don't like them. And so it became, I just was really burnt out. And most artists I know that offer commissions face the same problem because you want the commission and then you hate doing it. But I wanted to find a way to allow my collectors, whom I love, I have the best collectors. They're nerdy, enthusiastic science art fans. They're just brilliant. I love them. And I want to allow them to collect my art, and I want to be able to create original art. So I came up with a plan that works for both of us. I release a catalog of planned works twice a year. This is also really helpful for work like mine that takes a long time to prepare. I can't just draw anything you want. I will then have to go do research for it, which takes me at least 3 months to do, and in some cases 6 months to do if it's something I'm not used to. That's a huge amount of time that I need to dedicate to the piece, which I'm not being paid for, really, because I love it and I won't stop. So what I do is twice a year I release the catalog of planned works, which is a list of pieces that I want to draw. They are pieces and designs that I've already done the research for, so I already have all the data I need. The bulk of the research process is done. I already have a concept of the piece I want to create. And so sometimes I'll release the catalog with a sketch or a reference concept of what the image would be. And I say, I want to draw, recently, last year, I want to draw Mount St. Helens erupting. And so I see these are the pieces, or an anatomical climber is a piece that I want to make, or a DNA piece is a piece that I want to make. And my collectors look through and they go, oh, I definitely want that. And so my collector said, okay, I want Mount St. Helens and I want it at this size and I want it on this medium. And these are colors I love and these are colors I hate. And that is the full amount of input that they can give. So you collect a piece from me because you're ordering it from my catalog of things I want to make ahead of time. I give people a discount. So they get 10% off for pre-ordering an original that I want to make. And then the deal is you just trust me to make the art. And so, and I say there's a little artist contract. I'm like, this is really only for people who know my work and love my work and can trust me to do my thing. And my collectors have loved this because a lot of them have wanted to collect my original art from me for a long time, but they didn't know what they wanted. So it simplified things for them. And I've been able to focus on my work. Anyway, I have a few artist friends who are implementing this for themselves as well as a way to take commissions in a way that's sustainable for them.
And so when you say collectors, I think that's really cool, by the way. And I think that, like, even for me, when I was looking through doing some research, looking at how it was, I was like, how does this work exactly? I'm so glad you went through that because it was interesting to see all the stuff you were planning on making. But when you say collectors, is that just like people you know who collect your art, or do you have like an actual tier of people that support you that you have like an email list for, or like what does it mean to be a collector?
So most of my Most of my original work is sold to patrons on my Patreon account. I do recommend Patreon is the best way to follow me and support me. It's a platform where you can see what I'm making and actually get involved in my process without like a bunch of ads and scrolling forever, which is what I do when I go on Instagram. So I have I keep a list of my collectors and I actually send them invites personally to art events that I have, like open studio events. I keep in contact with them. And I've had a long list of people wanting to buy originals for me for a long time, but I didn't know how to implement it in a way that worked with my schedule and met my needs. And so for a really long time, I wasn't taking commissions at all. Like I just don't have time for that. But Patreon and my catalog of planned works allowed me to do that sustainably. So now I can do upwards of 6 commissions a year, like that. Does that
On
answer your
top
question?
of on top of the other stuff you already make.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like,
on top. Oh, everything I make is already pre-ordered. It's pre-sold.
oh,
Yeah,
Mhm.
which is
Yeah.
kind of weird. So if people want me to do a gallery event, like I can't offer anything because I have very few originals left that haven't been sold. I make it and it's sold. However, I do have one of the great things about being a patron is you get to see my studies. So because I'm a perfectionist, when I'm creating a piece, I first make a small. So most artists they make a thumbnail drawing. I make the entire thing but smaller. And so like I have a 2 by 3 foot copper plate etching to my left right now of the lonely whale. And before I did that, I wanted to make sure I had every part of the process, like which numbers go where and the medium and the composition and the dissipation worked out. And so I drew it twice. So I did it once on a metallic scratch paper and I did it another time on copper plate etching. And so each one of those is 9 by 12. So those are available to sell, and my patrons are the ones who usually buy it because I release it to them before the public, and they get 15% off my original work. So they collect it. But in the end, I have very few new pieces to show that aren't already sold.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting for, especially for artists who might be aspiring to actually have their art become their business. The idea of having people buy your, or having I guess a list of patrons or collectors or people like that you aren't like necessarily catering to, but you're really serving them at a higher level to give them opportunity to support you and get what they want, which is your art. So that's a really cool model that we haven't dug into with many artists yet. So thank you for sharing
I
that.
would say that my patrons, I feel like we're part of a community. So
Hmm.
my patrons are nerds. A lot of them are professional nerds, and they love the process. They contribute to the process, so they'll actually submit reference photos for me to use. They'll recommend research papers. If they have a background in a certain type of science, we'll actually collaborate on a piece together. Anyone who collaborates on a piece of mine gets a free print and like credit. But these people like they've been there for many years, and I consider many of them friends at this point. It's different. It's my Patreon community is different than like a normal online platform. I don't feel like I'm selling to people, or it's a very authentic place of connection.
Hmm.
on that note, how do you curate this sense of community? A lot of people talk about using Discord, for example, as a space to, facilitate conversation, but it sounds like you're doing all of this on Patreon. Is that right?
Yes, I do it on
How
Patreon.
how do you get this how do you get a conversation going on Patreon? Or maybe let's rewind a little bit farther back. Let's, like, when you started to get your patrons involved in the process, what was that like? What did that look like?
I mean, I've been blessed with really great patrons. There have been times where it's really quiet on there, which sucks. If you put a lot of work into making a post and sharing the process, and it takes a long time to record and edit a video and or to write a piece, and sometimes I write essays that go on there, and it never feels good to release that and then to have no one say anything and no responses. I found out later when I speak to my patrons in public that they read them, they just don't comment. But I would have a few people who engaged. and they would ask questions, and that sort of helped the community get started. It's a different environment. So I would say that patrons can actually do a lot of good by engaging with us. And that is also true on Instagram. We're people, and it's a vulnerable thing to share our process online, and hearing you connect with the work and the process in a really authentic way is really beneficial for us. It obviously boosts the algorithm when you comment and share, but it also helps so that we don't feel like we're screaming into the void.
Yes.
100% get that. Yeah.
On Patreon, I do think that offering the opportunity to actually collaborate got people excited. So I have something called the Patreon reference library that I invite patrons to go to, and they make their own little folder with their name on it. And I invite them to say, hey, if you have a photo on your phone that you just think would make a great numberism drawing, drop it in there and I'll look at it. And if I agree and I use it, then I will just give you a free print of it. And so that's kind of a sneaky way for you to get and you will get the first option to buy the original as well as the patron. And so, okay, I'll just show it to you first. It's a sneaky way to get an original custom piece without going through the process. Or if you don't have the budget for an original, it's a sneaky way of getting a print of the piece you've always wanted me to draw, like maybe an anatomical crow. I want to draw an anatomical crow. Please order an anatomical crow from me.
I like crows. I might do that. That sounds awesome.
It will be on my next catalog of planned works.
Yeah, I
Lots
was
of
looking.
birds.
It's blocked right now, but yeah. And it also sounds like it works for you too, because then you can go and pick and choose what you feel inspired to do, and you can feel authentic doing, which is that's really cool.
And I can plan my next year or two of what I'm drawing and stay focused. It's hard for me to stay focused. You end up wanting to especially when you're studying science, because the world is an amazing place, and you're like, I want to draw bioluminescent jellyfish, and I want to draw trees and mycelial networks and brains, and but if I have a plan that I can keep myself focused the next year or two, it's much better for me and for my collectors. I was going to say something else. Hold on, what was it? Darn it. Oh, I'm releasing my catalog of planned works in October. So that's when it's going to be released. I open it for Portland Open Studios, which is the second and third weekend of October at my studio. So Portland Open Studios is a citywide event in Portland where over 100 artists open their studios, and you can come in to our creative spaces, see what we're working on. A lot of artists, we all hold live demonstrations, so you can see you can actually watch me create my numberism drawings. And a lot of artists have discounts and specials and exclusive pieces. I use the event as an opportunity to come see my work, see the medium in person, and you can go through the catalog and reserve your next original. Of course, patrons get access to the catalog a week earlier, and most of the slots are full up by then. There's also usually a special private preview that the patrons get, where it's just a few of us in a quieter setting, a bunch of nerds in a low stimulating environment. But yeah, that's when my catalog will be unlocked.
Nice.
Okay, so early October.
Yes.
Awesome. Real quick, actually, this probably isn't really quick, to be fair, but I wanted to ask a bit about your pricing structure, because, and I'm going to give a little preface here of, for my day job, I make videos, and I very often deal with clients that, from wanting me to just do a video and then me check in with them when it's done, all the way to, hey, let me review your script. Let me see your first draft. Let me give you notes, whole gambit. But the pricing aspect of it has varied so much over the years, and I'm still constantly refining it. And I wonder, in your case, do you have a set structure at this point? Or for example, you mentioned the amount of research, the type of material, the size of the canvas that you're going to be working on. Do you have a set rubric, or is it very much I know it's going to take this number of hours of research, or I know this or that? What are some of the variables that you think about when you're pricing something?
So my originals are priced based on the level of detail and square foot. So my originals used to be $800 to $2,000 a square foot based on level of detail. It soon became apparent to me that they all end up being high detail because that is me.
Yes.
And none of it accounts for the research time. So I charge $2,000 a square foot for my pieces. If it's a copper plate, it's 5% more because them's expensive. And they are very finicky, and sometimes I'll need to buy another copper plate. I will say that the amount of time and work that I put into my pieces, the $2,000 a square foot, all that seems like a lot. And the piece that's sitting next to me, I think, is $13,000, which is a lot, right? That doesn't actually cover my time. If I were to break it down and go into an hourly, I would be scared by how low it is.
That's what I'm getting at, is because I can't imagine, because if on your website you say 50 to 100, 110 hours per project, and you've already said more than that. And I'm like, okay, well, the math ain't quite mathin' in my understanding of math. So how do you create a comfortable cost of living for yourself? And so I know we're talking about all kinds of stuff, and it's awesome, but the business side of things, how do you keep the business floating if this doesn't even cover your time?
Prints.
How big are they a part of your business, like percentage wise, maybe?
Selling reproductions is the foundation of my business. So that estimate I have for pieces taking me 3 months to research and 100 hours to draw is a really low estimate. The amount of time that it takes me to actually draw these is way more than that, but it's a number that's so big, I don't want to think about it.
Sure.
So I say 100 hours because people are like, oh, that's a lot of time. And I'm like, you have no idea. It's probably 300 hours, but we're just not going to talk about that. Part of my pricing is to make it accessible so people can actually buy it. If I were pricing my pieces at the rate that I am worth, I wouldn't be moving pieces except for a really small clientele that I'm not sure I have access to. And so I created a number that will move and that meets what I need. I also know that I can make prints of these pieces. If you want to get an exclusive drawing from me, it's twice that much.
Sure. Yeah.
Because then I can't make prints of it. And so
Right.
I own the rights to the image, and I can make reproductions however I want. I can make shirts, I can make paper prints and canvas prints. I can do whatever I want with it. Most of my income, please hold. I'm doing math. I'm doing math real quick.
Calculators are out.
Okay. So 27% of my income from last year was from originals.
Okay.
The rest of it was
almost a third. Pretty closer to a quarter.
I had a really good year last year for originals. So that's high. The rest of it is all prints.
But that also, I mean, if you can also, I imagine there are some prints that keep selling, like that you made 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was, that are just like you've probably reaped the rewards from that investment of time and energy well beyond that in order to have it. But it's like a great song, right? Like if you make a hit song, you could have an entire career off of one song, but you have many hits in your art. And so by doing that, you're going to have ones that continue to sell, which makes sense,
I used to keep track of how much in the beginning, I kept track of how much I made in prints for each image. And I don't do that quite as well now because there's too many images. But I had an example with my anatomical heart piece, which that was a really big sell for me. It was to a nurse and a doctor, and it was a huge piece, and it was a really big deal. It was the largest amount I had made on an original then. And I was like, wow, I've made it. And I don't know what this means. And then in 3 months, I made the same amount after I released it in prints.
What? In just 3 months?
In 3 months. That continues to be one of my most popular pieces that I've drawn. That piece is still doing really well. But if I can tell you that I would not be able to be a professional artist I haven't worked a day job in 15 years. Not at all. I haven't been part-time with this. I have been 100% full-time with my business since I started in 2008.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wasn't always easy. There was a lot of ramen in the beginning. But I would not be able to do this if I was relying on selling originals alone. And so as an artist, make reproductions viable for you. I make all my reproductions myself. Like, it's all in house, which does keep costs down. However, you need to produce it, and sometimes that means you're going to need help. So there's different ways to do it. I know artists who outsource all their prints, and that's great for them. They don't have to deal with it or worry about it at all. They have print on demand, and that's an option for you if you're not a perfectionist like me, who has to be in control of the whole process and what it looks like. We do prints and we do shirts. And when I do Emerald City Comic Con, my biggest product is an 8x10, which I have really great profit margin on. And then the shirts, which I have not as good of a profit margin on, but people walk around wearing it.
Hey, that's like advertising. Like, I'm wearing one right now. So
Yes.
yes, exactly. And I get compliments on it. I love wearing it. It's like a really subtle, nice piece with like a leather jacket or anything else on. It's like, oh, people, they don't notice it's Star Trek right away, and then like, oh, it's Star Trek. It's actually more than just Star Trek. Let me tell you.
Yes.
It's like nerd chic.
Exactly, right?
The kind of stuff I want to buy from nerdy artists aren't like, I don't want to get like a Darth Vader thing. I'm not really into Star Wars anyway, but I'm more of a Star Trek girl myself. But like, I don't want something that's just like a copy and paste of my fandom. I want something that's nerd chic. I want something that is like an original take on like the Firefly that you love, or, a really beautiful original concept of a dragon. That's kind of what I'm trying to achieve with my pieces, where it's like nerd chic.
Our last interview was with Hero Within Clothing, and they do a their whole thing is like classy, nerdy outerwear, streetwear.
Yeah.
And so I have the same shirt of yours that Chris is wearing right now, the Prime Directive, and I have worn it with that Star Trek jacket. It's the Strange New Worlds Away from the Mission jacket. Nice. And it's just one of the best feelings. Just like I have plenty of nerd clothes, but these combined felt like a whole new level, especially with some nice black slacks and black boots. Like, I'm ready to go down on an away mission.
Because like, if you're wearing actual Star Trek clothing out, you have to be in a Star Trek convention to be cool or sound cool. But I can wear this like anywhere, and people will be like, "Oh, that's cool," So I think that the elevation of this nerd clothing and making cool nerd clothing is a really awesome thing that we have been seeing at these cons. So. Frank, what do you think? Is it time?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get to our random rolls. We get to roll some dice now.
So random rolls it's a less serious, less business focused, more fun system. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and forth, Chris and I. You roll a D100, and we've got a list here of different questions based on the number that you roll. So take it away.
Okay, I'm ready. Make my little rolling spot here. Well, now I want to play D&D.
Yeah, I know. A lot of our guests, we keep on saying like we should start a Nerdpreneur game, just like with some of the Nerdpreneurs that we've had. Yeah.
That'd be fun. My current character is in the Fate system, and she's a science druid.
Oh, I've been wanting to play Fate. I got the book, but I haven't actually played Fate yet. So
it's fun. It's really low rules and high role play. It's hard for me though, because you have very few boundaries, and my creativity knows no bounds. And so it's hard to like narrow. Anyway, 53.
53. Wow. Right on the money here. In Star Trek, there are 6 divisions: science, medicine, command, con, security, and engineering. Which division would you train into?
Science.
Yes.
I was going to guess that.
That tracks. That makes sense. Are you sure you wouldn't want to do con? You don't want to pilot the ship and all the lives on it?
No, I don't like having that much responsibility. Although I would like to go onto planet and explore new worlds. The xenobiology, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Did you have a
Mhm.
favorite science officer in any of the shows?
Oh God, my brain is failing me right now. Give
We
me some
got
options.
yeah, 7 of 9 is a popular one. That was Voyager.
Hmm
Deep Space Nine would be Dax.
Dax, yeah.
Um,
Dax is
Dax,
awesome.
yeah.
Dax, Jadzia Dax. I wanted to be Jadzia Dax. She is a badass,
So
such a badass,
Mhm.
intelligent. Gives Klingons a run for their money.
She's
Yeah.
great.
And
Yes.
respected
love
by
Jadzia
everybody
Dax.
all over. Yeah, she was
I
awesome.
want that
Awesome.
remake of DS9 where they get the gang back together, and I really want her to come back.
That'd be
Yes,
cool.
God.
That'd be great. All right, please roll one more.
Okay, only one.
We'll do
a couple.
3 more actually.
Okay, 96.
96. All right. Ooh, name one person that you would like to interview for 60 minutes.
This seems like a really serious question. 60 minutes.
Oh, we can cut the time down or increase it if there's too much. If 60 minutes is too much.
I mean, honestly, right now I'm really focused on birds. So anyone who's an ornithologist for 60 minutes who'd let me ask them questions. There's a problem with being my kind of nerd is you want to talk about your special interests forever, and not everyone is into that. Being at Comic-Con is great for that because you just sort of filter people with your special interests and you can talk with them, which is great. An ornithologist. I'd like to interview an ornithologist for 60 minutes.
Someone on the level of like Jane Goodall.
I mean, she's not an ornithologist, but yes. Okay, Jane Goodall.
Right. Yeah.
Jane
yes.
Goodall. I'll take that one. Good one. Yes, please.
Oh, that one instead. I was
Yes.
just saying like on that caliber.
No.
Okay, all right.
I'll take Jane Goodall.
Okay.
She is a gem.
Please roll one more.
I'm gonna have like 6 new answers to that question once we hang up.
You can ping us later and be like, oh my God, I should have said this.
Actually, also, my brain will give me the names now. Allie Ward.
Who's
of
that?
Ologies.
How do I know that?
Oh my God, how do you guys not know Ollie Ward of Ologies?
I'm gonna Google now.
It sounds familiar, but I can't place it for myself.
Ologies is a science podcast where Allie Ward, who's a science communicator and super big nerd, interviews different scientists from different ologies, like biology and
Funology.
Yeah, that was the last one. She doesn't like the term phonology. She usually finds a word that is actually used in scientific discord as the ology. And that one existed, so she had to use it. But that was actually a really good episode. I'm rambling again. I have been trying to work on and figure out what it is I like to do for fun, because what I like to do for fun is different than what other people like to do for fun, and what other people like to do for fun sounds terrible to me. And so I'm like, what is fun? Like I'm asking my friends, like, what do you do for fun? Like, whee, fun. And they're like, I know what fun is. I'm like, I know, but I don't think I know what fun is. So what do you do for fun, and what does it feel like? So it was really great to hear that episode, because the the ologist being interviewed was asking those same questions, like, what does it mean, for, fun with an exclamation point? What is that? And I think as an entrepreneur and an artist and a student, it's really important to figure it out what it is you like to do for fun and actually interact that in your life, which I don't tend to do. So yes,
And
watch that
align it,
episode.
yeah. Okay.
I would love to
Well, I'm
interview
definitely gonna check it
Allie
out.
Ward, because she's always interviewing other people, and I feel like we could be friends. She's my kind of person.
I wanted to go back to birds for 1 second because I couldn't remember the name of this Instagram, but I wondered if you followed it already. But it's Corvid Research. Okay,
yes,
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Okay,
yes, I also know her research.
Oh, awesome. I was going to say she's like a full-on like doctorate, and I've been like, we should get her on the podcast. She'd be really fascinating to talk to. So
yeah, her life is a dream. I love her.
Yeah.
And her world.
Yeah, and I thought great name for her Instagram, great timing, and all of the content around crows, really. Yeah, so
Yeah, she did her thesis, her doctorate thesis, I believe, on crow funerals.
yeah, it's a weird phenomenon that crows have a lot of weird phenomenon, which makes them
I would say
endlessly fascinating.
interesting phenomenon.
Well, maybe interesting is better than weird. Yeah.
I love crows. I have a tattoo of a crow on my arm. So another story. Sorry. When I went back to school after 15 years in 2020 to get my degree in biology, it was my time in school has been blessed by crows. On the very first day of going back to school, it was math class for the day one. After 15 years of being away, I was eating breakfast on our back balcony patio deck, and a random crow came down and shared breakfast with me. Ate some of my egg and then ate from my hands.
Wow.
And hung out for like 20 minutes.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Which is why I feel like I need to draw birds, because they've blessed I owe them.
One of the muses.
All
Well,
right.
enough of this really, really nerdy deep stuff. Let's talk about some other silly things with quick questions in our rapid fire section.
Good luck.
So, yes, exactly. These are rapid fire questions. We will provide short questions. You provide answers, and whether your answers are right or wrong, we will tell you. And starting off,
oh wait, I can be wrong. I'm being tested.
Oh, it
no,
depends on the answer.
I did say that to a student. I'm terribly sorry. Someone currently in school, that might be traumatic. So instead,
I love being tested.
Okay, you're being tested now. Who is your favorite captain in Star Trek?
Oh God. I guess Picard.
Okay, very good. That is the correct answer, actually. It's a very good answer. Picard is fantastic. As I rewatch it, he's just got great one-liners.
He's also my
first
captain.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Coffee or tea?
Tea now. Used to be coffee. I drank tea for a while to try to cut down on my caffeine, and now tea tastes better than coffee.
How many cats is too many cats?
I mean, depends on the environment. The point at which the effort to keep the cat boxes clean is an issue is too many cats.
Like it takes too much time, or it's too stinky, or
if I can smell
both.
The cat box, yeah.
Both. If you can smell the cat box, it's too many cats.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Unless it's your cats and I can come visit them and then leave, then no end. You can have 20 of them. That's great. I'll get my snuggles and leave.
Do you have a go-to karaoke song?
I have several. So for I do Good to Mama from Chicago.
Okay, yeah.
Tenacious D, Wonder Boy.
Oh, that's mine too. I sing Wonder Boy. That's awesome.
I kick ass on Wonder Boy.
If you can do Wonder Boy, people are impressed. It's a good crowd pleaser. Yes.
Yes. Those two.
Awesome.
Let's see. I'm probably gonna go with one last one here. You know what? I'm gonna take it back to Star Trek. Who is the best first officer, in your opinion?
The first officer is number one, right?
That's right. Yeah, Riker, Kira, Chakotay, Una. Una in Strange New Worlds.
Was Odo?
No, he's a constable. He did more security.
Yeah.
He's dope, though. Totally agree.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, Kira is great. I'm also thinking of Strange New Worlds. What is his name? What is his name?
Of the guys, there's Spock, there's Pike.
Oh no, I'm not thinking Strange New Worlds. I'm thinking of God damn it. So many
Discovery. Enterprise?
Discovery. No, not Enterprise.
Sorry,
I hate that show.
Everyone just turned on me right now.
That is the worst captain, by the way.
Yeah.
Bakula was like the beige of captains. He was just like, I don't want to commit to any sort of like personality for
He
my
played so
captain.
safe. As
Ugh.
like the way they wrote him, he played it was such a safe character. And we could go into it like but Saru is the one you're thinking of. He's the
Oh
number one on
yeah,
Discovery.
Yeah.
the
Unless you're counting Michael
best.
Burnham before
Michael Burnham was a pretty cool
uh,
first officer when she was one.
Yeah.
well, the time that she mutiny.
That
Yeah.
one time.
I mean, this is something I haven't actually thought about this question before. I think of lots of questions about Star Trek. You didn't ask me who my favorite character ever was. I have those too.
Sorry. I think it's Odo though. That's just a guess.
Well, Odo's one of them. So I think characters like Odo and Data, they are the characters that are the most human because they're the ones who are trying to figure it out. And they're being authentic and genuine about being like, I don't know how to human, and I'm trying to learn how to human, or person, or humanoid. Whereas all the other humanoids who have been humanoid their whole life are just pretending to know how to, and they don't. And we're all trying to figure out how to, make romantic connections, how to socialize, how to work within, your industry, what your purpose in life is. And those characters are the only ones who are honestly, and Seven of Nine, those are the only characters who are honestly saying like, hey, I don't know, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm trying to get help from everybody around me. And using all of the resources that are at my disposal to figure this out, which is why I love those characters.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. But who is your favorite number one?
I can't. I want to say Kira just because she's awesome. She feels like she would be your, like, a really great best friend in that she would tell you what is up. She is really honest and direct, which I really appreciate, and she's willing to disagree with you. And also I like that I'm choosing a female character. And I was just talking about Jadzia Dax, whom I love, so I guess I'm going to stay in the same world and say Kira.
We had a comedian on who does a Star Trek podcast, and he's gotten even more into the Star Trek world, and he's met a lot of the actors, and he met the actress that plays Kira Nerys, and he says that she is such a very present and vulnerable woman that it's overwhelming at first, but then so just wow, this human being is really here with me right now. And you can see that in Kira at times.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially when she's with Odo and they're more open about their romance, like one of the best romances on TV, by the way. Holy smokes. Just like such, yeah. Anyway, and you see that and it's like, wow, she's like that in real life. Like what a vulnerable human being. Amazing.
That's awesome.
So my final question will be, fear the AI or embrace the AI?
Oh man, that's your last question.
Yeah, controversial, man.
Rapid fire.
All right. So when AI is being used to create art, destroy the AI.
Yeah.
AI, when it comes to art, is stealing from artists' hard work, labor, and creativity without any credit or benefit for them, and is providing, honestly, non-creative people this sense that art is a push-button process that doesn't involve all of the processes I was perhaps talking about with my work, or any of the artists I know who dedicate their lives and livelihood to figuring out how to make art artfully and skillfully. And so I think it's a disservice to artists and to viewers because it takes the magic out of it. That's not the right word. I think that without AI, the public is already distanced from the hard work that goes into creating art, into all of it, all of the work and effort and energy, and AI makes them a little bit further away from that. So they're a little bit more disconnected to the humanity in art. And then when it comes to AI photography, that's even worse because we have a population in America that's really disconnected from the scientific world and the biological world. Nature is far and away, it's extended from us, and we don't have a real relationship with it. And there's a lot of sort of science, what's the word? It's sort of, what's the word? We have a lot of people who are disbelieving scientific conclusions, which is really bad for the general, with our population's integration with science and data and reason, and being shown these false images of flagrantly incorrect birds and and animal life, further distances them and removes the sense of awe that we have. It's what I'm experiencing when I see images of wild, amazing animals online. My response used to be, wow, that's in our world? Like, crazy that you have these amazing deep sea creatures and these like brilliant, beautiful birds, and all of these animals I've never seen before are incredible plants. The biological world is incredible enough as it is. We don't need to make it any more incredible. But now when I see images online, instead of I begin and then I stop and I say, is this real? And so I don't trust the images I see online, and I feel disconnected from it. And I think all of us are losing that sense of awe of the natural world and of art, because you see incredible art that's posted online and you go, I don't know, that's pretty incredible. Is that AI? And that's creating a hole in us. We are losing something from AI art that I'm not sure we can get back. So, no to AI in that respect. However, for your rapid questions, I have something to say about AI used well. So, AI is currently being used in trying to discover cetacean language. So, how whales speak, for instance, and being able to track individual whales. And so you have huge data processing abilities with AI that can far exceed what we can do with talented scientists. And so instead of them spending, dozens and dozens and dozens of hours processing images, they can be working on they can be spending their time actually making conclusions and doing valuable work. And so AI, when it is used to improve the efficiency of data processing, and when it's used for like pushing forward for language and that's what we need AI for. We need AI to help us create the universal translator. We need AI to help us get the basic things done in our life. We do not need it to make us our art or our movies or our music. But it's a useful assistant.
I think
There's
that's
very,
really
very
well
exciting
said.
things that are being done in AI.
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
opinions about AI, Chris.
No, I was like, that's why I was like,
He knew what he was walking
let's
into.
ask that one. I'm loving that question because I think we are getting a little bit into the nuances of how we have to parse this as a society,
Yeah.
because it's so relevant right now, and I'm sure for you it touches right on to what you do. And
Yeah.
it's I really wanted to hear what it was you had to say about it, so thank you.
I have another point about AI art, if it's okay. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Yeah.
We're way over time and I'm about to stop. But this year has been much less profitable for most artists that I know at events. And we historically, election years haven't been good for vendors in general. But I can't help but wonder if AI is affecting that, because of that lack of wonder, that people are getting disconnected from art, and that's our customer base. So
Sienna, this has been so awesome. And thank you so much for coming on to share with us your story and inspire, I hope, other people to pursue their nerdy passion into a business. If you had any last piece of advice for people who are out there aspiring to be successful, nerdy entrepreneurs or nerdpreneurs, what would you give them as your last piece of advice here?
I would say do what you love and be sure to take care of yourself while you're doing it. If you are lucky enough to be successful, you need to make it sustainable. So self-care is a fundamental part of your business. It's not a luxury. It's required.
And for all of our listeners, thanks again for listening. And as always,
keep it nerdy.
Where can people find you, support you, and maybe get some art from you?
So for the socials, you can follow me on Instagram. Sienna Art Studios is me on Instagram. I really recommend Patreon. You can see what I'm working on, get behind the scenes access to my process, and get 15% off everything forever. You also get early access to my catalog of planned works, as mentioned earlier. I'll be at Rose City Comic Con in September, assuming this is coming out before then. It might be coming out afterwards, in which case, hi, people that I met at Rose City Comic Con. And at Portland Open Studios in the first and second weekend of October. If you're in Portland, come by my art studio. You'll get to see my Space Whale and my Lonely Whale completed, and I'm opening up my books there, and you can explore my art studio and talk nerdy with me in person. I will probably go on as long as I've gone on here.
Well, thank you. It was wonderful.
You guys are so patient with me.